Hi there, this is Tami Bonnell, co-chair for EXIT Realty Corp International. And I have the privilege today of having a conversation with Laya Gavin, who is a broker owner for EXIT Realty Sun City. I can't think of a happier name for an office, but she happens to live in Sun City, Arizona. But I want to tell you a few things about Laya before we have this conversation. And her and I are going to have a conversation about being the solution and helping with educating people and affordable housing as well as housing affordability. And she is passionate about making sure that she participates in her community, that she participates on giving people an education. She's even the author of a book, 10 Smart Money Moves and How to Master Your Money and Make a Difference. And I can tell you, she's constantly making a difference. She's constantly making a difference with her agents, with her communities, and with all of the things she's involved in. And so hopefully we'll get to touch base on enough of them that you'll not only get a feel for her and how wonderful she is, but you'll get some insight. Part of the series on being part of the solution is opening doors and opening minds so that we have the opportunity to have people really see possibilities. I'm a firm believer, we're hearing so much about housing affordability, and I get it. Housing income has not gone up the same as housing prices has, right? People that are buying homes, their income has not gone up the same. And I completely understand that it's an issue that we need to face. But there are things that are being done all over North America that are getting results. And I think if we brainstorm, we collaborate, we share more of what's working, and we focus on the solution instead of the problem, we'll come up with more solutions. And the more of us that do it and really get a vested interest, decide on having a vested interest in the success of this, the better off we'll be. So, Laya, I can't thank you enough for being here today, and welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be invited to the table and have the conversation. I just looked at what we were doing in our local community as this is my little corner of the world. So I didn't think anybody was paying attention. So thank you for letting me even talk about it.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I love that you're not only having the impact on your community, you're having the impact on your agents so that they're seeing what's possible and they're seeing leading by example. And, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, but sometimes when you're having a tough time, maybe that you're even you could be going through a tough day or a tough period of time, the more you give back to someone else, the better you feel, right? When you're helping others, it changes your whole entire mindset of what you're doing. But you have a list of things you're doing. So if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of go down the list and then have you take it out a little bit further on what it is you're actually doing. So I know you're involved with an organization that, number one, I'd like you to talk a little bit about NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, why you got involved. You're very involved, in fact, being responsible for a chapter, and they have so many great missions involved in the organization, which I love, and one specifically that you're involved with community events. But I'd like for you to share a little bit about that so that people can see there might be an opportunity for them to get involved on that level.
Absolutely. NAREB, like you said, it's abbreviation for National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And it is the organization that was started 75 years ago when the National Association of Realtors was segregated and would not allow people of color to join. So I'm excited, first of all, that this is the 75th anniversary year of this organization, and they've been working since then, founded in the civil rights movement, and their mission is democracy and housing. So it's all about making sure that there is advocacy for those folks, that their voices have not been heard, that policies have not been changed yet to be make it a fair level playing field for all of us to be able to own homes. They're fighting loan level pricing issues where people who have credit issues are being charged more because they have credit issues, right? And then there's some policies that are created trying to make things better, but they have unintended consequences. So NAREB is an organization. There are over 90 chapters across the country of individuals who say, you know what? Doesn't matter if I'm black, brown, red, white, or yellow, I'm all about democracy and housing. And I think everyone who wants to own should be put on a path to homeownership so that they can have sustainable homeownership, right? So I heard about NAREB probably 5 or 6 years ago when I first started my franchise. And I got invited to a couple of meetings. I was excited about it, but you know, when you're first opening your franchise, you've got like information coming from everywhere. So I joined, but I stayed on the sidelines because I was so busy with trying to get my business off the ground. And then just about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the organization came back up on my radar again. And I thought, you know what, now's the time where I can get involved and actually do something. So when I said that, next thing I know, I'm chapter president for the Arizona chapter. And it was a process of trying to get that chapter back off the ground because it had been quiet for a couple of years. And so in the last year and a half, we have been doing the infrastructure things to get the chapter functional. And then in the last several months, we've been doing more of the community outward facing, outward reaching events, which is what I'm really excited about now.
I love that. And, you know, I think that it's so important to have diversity. The more successful everything is when we add in diversity, there's no doubt about it. And obviously, even having it go a little bit quiet, I think part of that we can attribute to COVID, right? That really had an impact on so many lives. Before we go any further, thank you for choosing to lead, because it is a choice, right? We are all in circumstances, but it's not the circumstances you're in, it's the choices you make that make all the difference in the world. So I'm really glad that you made the choice to participate and be involved. You know, we have everything from credit invisible to people that need to work on their credit. So much of it is education and exposure to experiences. And I think that that's one of the things that NAREB does unbelievably well. So talk to me a little bit about community events with NAREB that you're working on now.
Yeah, so NAREB actually has 5 different pillars that it's focusing on as how it reaches out to the community. One of them is women-focused investment events. So they have a program called WIRE, Women Investing in Real Estate. And we have locally taken on that mantle, and we started doing webinars once a month. And we have a couple of lender partners that talk about how women are the highest revenue generators in businesses like Airbnb over the last couple of years. And so they talk about how much revenue can be generated there. And then the lenders help us figure out for our clients how they can position themselves to acquire property and turn it into a short-term rental, or how they can take the property that they already have and turn it into a short-term rental and generate revenue that can cover the expenses and you know, get some extra disposable income in. So we do that once a month. And so we started that. Our first one was in February. We had about 15, 20 people on it. The second one was in March. Again, about 15 or 20 people on it. And it was just, you know, we gave information and our partners were there. And afterwards, we scheduled follow-up calls with those that wanted more information. And we've got women that are pre-qualified and are shopping for investment property in multiple states right now, just because we did a couple of phone calls. And so we've actually scheduled those to happen for on a monthly basis for the rest of the year. And people can dial in from anywhere they are. The lenders work in all 50 states. So we can connect them to make sure that they get the information they need for state-specific solutions. So that was one of the first things from the national organization that we were able to implement here locally. And all it took was scheduling the webinar and finding a couple partners that would say, hey, we'll have this conversation, and anybody who wants the information can take advantage of it. So what I love about that, Tami, is that the folks that are coming to these calls and to our community events wouldn't typically go out to other events because they didn't recognize the presenters, or they didn't recognize the hosts, or they didn't recognize the venue, but they're coming because we're communicating with them in a familiar space. So NAREB is about, one of our other pillars is faith-based and community engagement. So it is realizing the fact that most minorities are attached to either a civic organization, a service organization, whether that's fraternity or Masons or Elks, or they're attached to a church. And so that's like 85% or more of us are connected in some way. And so NAREB is doing a national initiative to reach out to these leading organizations and say, we're here, we want to be a resource, we want to educate the community. And so our second set of events that we've done this year has been through our faith-based and community engagement piece, and we've connected with actually my local church. My bishop agreed to allow to have us host our home buyer education classes at the church in one of the classrooms. And so we did our first one in April as part of Realtist Week for NAREB. Full room of people. None of them had a real estate relationship. None of them had owned a home before, but they all wanted to find out. And so what we were able to do is we put a team together. We had a individual talk about, from a real estate perspective, what we do to get ready. We had a lender talk about that process. One of our church members, I found out, is an underwriter. So she came and shared. And you know, in the loan process, you never see an underwriter. It's like, you know, the wizard behind the screen. So one of our church members was an underwriter, so she shared. And then we had a home inspector share. And then it was facilitated all by a NID housing counselor advisor. And so what happened after we finished that, it was a whole day of information. We fed them breakfast and lunch, and out of the 20 people, 8 of them have sat down with the housing counselor and gone through one-on-one series of, here's my budget, here's my credit information, here's my income information. How do I get ready to be successful before I get to talk to the lender? And I'm hopeful that more people will either sit down with that counselor one-on-one, or maybe they're already further along. But it's just having that conversation of, you can take the first step if you've got the information from a trusted source and somebody's willing to walk you through it. And that's what we're doing right now, and everybody's excited about it.
I love it. Well, you know, a few things I just wanted to add to the conversation. We're actually seeing people that are buying investment properties first before even buying their first home, whether they buy it in an area that they may not want to live in. It could be a multifamily unit so that they're getting several rents and maybe they start off there and they can go somewhere else, or they're buying short-term rentals that they can rent out and gain a tremendous amount of income so that they actually have the money to go into where they want to live. So, you know, it's wonderful to know that there are options out there, and I think that it's really important for people to be aware of that. What I love too, even from an investment standpoint, is that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your education and what your experience level is. Everyone can get involved in real estate. And it doesn't matter buying, selling, investing. Everyone can get involved in real estate, but it's starting with start. We see a lot of people that, and I wanted to go through from the mortgage process, perhaps in case there's somebody on this that doesn't understand the process, but you end up with a mortgage originator that writes a loan for you and helps you to get a pre-approval so that you go through an application process. And the underwriter is the person that reviews your loan after they get all the information. They get the appraisal, they get the home inspection, they get all the information, including the credit report for the buyers, and they're the person that looks at all that information and determines the approval process. So having an underwriter at an event is phenomenal, because you're right, they are the wizard. But just in case anybody didn't understand that that's a person behind the process. We also saw people during the pandemic, from an emotional standpoint, go in and buy without enough information, right? So we saw some buyer's remorse. And I think having people understand the importance of an appraisal, the importance of a home inspection, the importance of credit, all of the things to go through that educational process, so that you want them to, it is responsible for literally 42 times as much wealth for a family if they end up with home ownership. But understanding all the steps and understanding everything that's involved, I think really helps them to make very good decisions. And having a professional on the other side of that, I think really helps them to make good decisions. You had mentioned something to me too about having a HUD certified counselor at an event. So how did you go about getting that person to be able to be involved? Housing and Urban Development Counselor, how did you go and have the opportunity to have that person get involved?
It's the conversation of having the NID housing counselors is also something that NAREB is very, very mindful of, right? And so part of one of the things that NAREB offers its chapter members across the country is how to have that piece in your office as a as another service that you can offer to your clientele. And oddly enough, the individual that we had as our counselor at our meeting was one of the founding members of the Arizona chapter for NAREB like 15 years ago. And so I connected with her and I was like, okay, we would like to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. And she's like, I'm excited about it. Whatever you want to do, tell me when you want to schedule it and we'll get it on the calendar. And the thing that I really appreciate about it is the fact that as a real estate agent, so many people will come to you and say, hey, I want to buy, I need help. But sometimes they need those individual hand-holding baby steps, education piece before they're ready for you as a realtor, right? And as much as you'd love to help everybody do that, you can't still sell effectively and help everybody through all of those conversations. So to be able to partner up with a counselor like this, if somebody's not ready to go forward to talk to a lender, now I've got somebody who will walk them through it. They don't have any vested interest as to what type of product they get. It's just the education piece, right? And it's just getting you ready so that you know what you need to do and helping you understand what your finances will allow you to do so that you don't jump into something and purchase more than you can carry on a monthly basis. I always tell our clients and I always tell my agents that we want clients to have the house that they can live in, and we don't want them to be house rich and cash poor. And so that piece of education helps protect that.
I love that. And it is so important to make sure that they have all the information. This is just building a solid foundation, which is what you're doing. And so I would love to have, obviously NAREB has 5 pillars, and I believe that you told us a few. So I'd love to hear the other pillars, and then we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. And because I'm still like this whole NAREB thing, it's not new to me, but I'm just like a information junkie, right? So I'm educating myself on it as much as I can. It's wealth building, generational wealth, right? Because we want to retain that wealth in our communities. It is faith-based and civic engagement. It is women investing in real estate. It is diversity and inclusion and small business focus, because that's what the realtors are, right? And it is advocacy and government relations. Those are the 5 pillars. And so when we look at what our national organization is doing for NAREB chapters across the country, they are having leadership meetings to look at the big picture of what's happening in policy. They are looking at what's happening in interest rates and housing, and what NAR is doing as far as diversity and equity inclusion. When we go to chapter meetings or conventions and conferences, it's amazing that when we go in there, it's not just like a realtor conference where they're saying, hey, let us show you how to do a better listing package, or let us show you how to get a better CRM. It's none of those conversations. It's about, you have a business. How do we teach you to build something that impacts the community? How do we teach you to do something where you're not just going from transaction to transaction, but you're actually community building? You can learn in your business how you can actually be the developer. How can you buy the block rather than just, look for an investor that will say, hey, here's a transaction. No, they're helping their members across the country look at a bigger picture of real estate. Like you said, there's a way for everybody to be involved in real estate. And when you go to the events for NAREB, regional, national, you will hear a bigger picture of the real estate market and the industry. So they talk about having government contracts. They talk about, like I said, community development. They talk about how to increase diversity in the industry, whether it's appraisers or inspectors or lenders or realtors. And there's over 30 different career paths in real estate. And we want to see more diversity in all of those things. So that's some of the conversations that I think makes NAREB super different for an individual to be a participant in. They just, in their Women Investing in Real Estate initiative, they just came out with a white paper on the whole impact of women in real estate, and how over 53% of households are led by single Black women. And so that's why one of their initiatives is, how do we get these women to become homeowners? Because they're leading most of our households, right? And if they're leading most of our households, then if they own, then the next generation learns to own and not be another generation of renters. And so when you see information like that and you hear the stats behind it, it just gives you a whole new level of understanding about, okay, it was never a level playing field, but if we get the information, we can figure out how to make it better.
You know, I love, it's so important for us to give people the education, right? Everyone wants more, and whether they want more money, more moments, more opportunities, you know, more occasions, more relationships, more relevance, more experience, more expertise, they've got to start with start. And I find that one of the toughest things, consistency is not sexy, right? The whole idea of doing things consistently and being consistent with it, but you've made up your mind to be consistent and contribute in your way, which I think everybody finding their own lane is a terrific thing. So, you know, you're contributing by doing these first-time homebuyer events and having a conversation with people, by having women investing and having there be a regular monthly webinar. And I think it's important for everybody to know you can be in front of one person, you can be in front of thousands, but you have to start with start. And so you start, and if it's one success at a time or making that success one person at a time, that makes all the difference in the world. So I would love to hear from you. Obviously, you found your lane, and you found this great opportunity for yourself and your agents and your office, and you're really having an impact on your community and the community that's really important to you, right? Where you live and breathe, which I think is so important for so many people. But what would you give for, if you would say, this is my top 3 pieces of advice for people that want to get involved in being the solution on having us have more people afford to be able to move into a house, or having more people find an opportunity, whether that's down payment assistance or understanding credit, or just literally going through the home buying process for education. Anyone that wants to, and I'd love to do it from 2 angles, anyone that wants to help people do that, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice? And anyone that's looking for possibilities for themselves, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice?
I think what I would start with is just be nosy. Be nosy, ask lots of questions, get a lot of different conversations, find people who will answer your questions and help you understand, right? Because a lot of people have information, but not everybody is willing to share. And when you run into somebody who is already experienced in that area, seen success in that area, and they're willing to pour into you and open the door and say, hey, you don't have to knock it down. Let me show you who's on the other side. And this is who you need to talk to. If you can get into those conversations, then that will help you accelerate faster, right? And so I've been fortunate enough that I've had people through the local association. I've had people through EXIT. Keith and Deanna Weaver have been fantastic. The state association, I've connected with members of the Arizona Association of Realtors, leadership teams there, and they have been like, hey, we want to hear more of these conversations, and here's how we can help in our little way, and you tell us what door, and we're there for you. So I think it's alignment of relationships that can help you move to the next level. That might not be 3, Tammy, but that's
Well, I heard though, be curious, right? Ask questions, find the right people to ask those questions of, and then build relationships, which I think are perfect top 3. You know, I always find, you know, you might even connect 2 people together, and all of a sudden there's even more of an idea because of that collaboration. So I love that, Laya. That's awesome. So advice for people that are looking at, they feel like they're never going to be able to afford to get into a home, yet there are down payment assistance programs, there are grants, there are ways to even give them enough education so that they can say, okay, I need to save up X, Y, and Z, and we're willing to give up X, Y, and Z in order to be able to do that. We have people that are doing literally crowdfunding when they're expecting a baby instead of doing baby shower gifts, or doing it, you know, instead of accepting wedding presents, or graduating from law school, so that they are getting towards a down payment, which I think is really cool. There's all sorts of creative ways, but and I would imagine one of them on your list would probably be ask questions and be curious. But what would be your advice for people that really want to find out? How do I find out about the good news that there are possibilities and that there are
Absolutely.
solutions?
Yeah, well, of course, I'd say find a good realtor, right? Um, and then the other thing I would say was do not be discouraged if you get a no first time out of the box, because different lenders have different programs that they say this fits in our box. This is our sweet spot. And then some things they just don't do because that's not their lane. That's okay. You keep going until you find someone that has a program that will fit for you. Um, I've seen people get into homes with as little as $2,000 total money in between earnest money and closing costs. And it's like, you would spend that money if you went to lease an apartment, and between your first and last and security deposit, cleaning deposit, you'd spend that much and more, right? So there are programs out there. Just keep asking questions. Get with an agent that will actually explore your options for you. Some agents, some lenders just want the clean, simple, and easy, and others will go through the process to find out what it will take to help you in your specific situation get to your end goal. And there's more than one way to get there. So
I love that. I love that. And I think the biggest thing is don't give up, right? Stay curious and stay asking questions and stay finding out, because there are several solutions out there. And I think even working towards a goal, right? Having a target in mind, this is what you want. So just keep having the conversations that go towards that. It's always about focusing on the solution. Leah, I can't thank you enough. I think that you've given us so much food for thought. It isn't even funny. I'm glad that you're involved with an organization that you feel so strongly about, that you're willing to really participate, because it doesn't matter what it is we have, right? If we have great things, but we just keep it on the shelf and we're not using what's there, we're not going to get anything out of it. And it sounds like you're definitely using what's there within our organization, as well as within NAREB, and seeking out on your own as well, which I think we should all stay curious and do that. So thank you for choosing to lead. I think it's a real strong decision, and one that looks good on you for sure. And I can't wait to see the ripple effect of all the people that you've already had conversations with, and what that's going to do with one conversation leads to another one, and the impact that's going to have on the community that you represent.
thank you. Well, I'll just add one thing to it about the being curious and getting in conversations. I've listened to you when you come out live for our regional events. When I've gone to conventions, I've listened to Annette Anthony and many other leaders within EXIT, and I've heard some of the tools that you've offered and recommended, and that's how I got to the down payment resource link, right? Because I heard you say in one meeting there are over 4,000 down payment assistance programs across the country, and do you know how to get to them? And I was like, I want to know how to get to them. Where do I go, right? So it's being out there and hearing leadership speak, and then not just hearing them, but going back to do the little background digging that you have to find to get to the resources of conversations that otherwise I would not have been in. I think that's tremendous. And I think the other thing I would say to people is don't be afraid to start it small. Whatever you find, get 2 or 3 people together and share it. And then, like you said, it just comes a ripple effect of brainstorming, and then open it up to anybody who wants to come and let them hear that same information, because you don't have to be a master at this stuff to be able to share information to help somebody move from one step to the next step. One of my mentors said to me, she said, well, you know what? Don't worry about not knowing everything, because to a 3rd grader, an 8th grader is as a champion, right? So all you got to do is be a few grades ahead of the person that you're bringing information to, and just show them the path to the next step. And that's where we are. We're giving what we have, and then we're bringing in experts to fill in the gaps, and everybody gets to move forward. And people get to see somebody that they can relate to, saying, hey, here's the story of how I did it, and I didn't know everything when I started, but I started. And each time you take another step, the other solutions will come, because you'll have more tools and more information. And so that's what we're doing. We're just taking a step, and we're helping other people do it too.
Well, and I think that's the most important thing, and a perfect thing to end on. Just take that step, right?
That's
Thank
it.
you so much. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and hopefully there's a tremendous amount of people that will want to just take one step, whether they're going into the buying process or they're going to help other people to do the same. And thank you definitely so much for being so much focused on the solution.
My pleasure. Thank you.